Hello everybody. Today we're going to talk about hubs. I see a lot of big games using hubs. A lot of AAAs have hub worlds or hub towns or hub cities or whatever, but most indies don't, and I don't understand that because a hub is an incredibly powerful tool for any indie game designer. So I'm going to tell you a lot about them. I'm going to tell you exactly why you should create them and how you should create them, and hopefully you'll be able to use hubs in any of your games where it would be advantageous. You can't fit a hub world into every game, but a lot of games can use them, and they're very, very powerful. A hub location offers you three things. First, it really makes your game a lot easier to develop. Second, it really makes your game a lot denser. And third, it really makes your game a lot more approachable. Those are all wins, so let's talk about it. First and foremost, assets are extremely expensive. And so you need to go green. You need to reduce, reuse, and recycle. A hub world is all about that. So if you were to build yourself a hub city and you had a couple of buildings and a street and something like this, you'll get to use these assets forever. The whole game, you'll have the same assets. And you can spend a lot of time making your hub world or hub city just the best thing you can possibly churn out. And your player will live inside of that city for the entirety of the game. Now, this is a fantastic idea because even if you need to change your city, like if night falls or a meteor hits, you don't need to redraw everything from scratch. You just need to edit a couple of things. This is a far cry from a normal RPG approach where you have villages scattered around the map. Now, there are advantages to doing that as well, but the biggest disadvantage is that you have to actually create those assets. You need to build those cities, those people, and you need to basically build them from scratch every single time. Even if you already have the tile map, you need to redo all of the levels. You need to build every level. You need to link everything up. You need to populate the town with people, write all their dialogue. It is a huge burden. So having a single hub town will allow you to condense that burden and still end up with a higher quality result. So let's go over some examples of that. I think the first thing I'm going to talk about is the Normandy, which doesn't look very much like this, but every single ship I draw looks like a chicken, so that's what we're going to go with. The Normandy is from Mass Effect, and it is a very small ship, and it is just perfect as a hub world. It accomplishes most of the things I want to see out of a hub world, 4 things in particular, because it is a very, very well-built little toy. And I wanted to show you this right off the bat because the Normandy is not a city. It is not a world. It is a ship, and it goes with you wherever you go. This allows you to have an unprecedented flexibility. You can just take your home with you like a turtle. So it has a couple of the major features that I consider important. First off, it is always around. You're very rarely unable to access the Normandy, and that means that regardless of what's going on, you do have a place to retreat to. Second, it allows you to restock and upgrade combat. So, for example, you can buy more grenade ammunition, or you can get a better weapon from your vendor. Now, it's not the best at those things. You'd be better off going to an actual planet because you get a sale price on whatever you're trying to upgrade on, and you have a limited selection on the Normandy. So it's very well done. It's just good enough to help you out in the wild without being so powerful as to make everything else obsolete. Third, it allows you the I'm going to call it the meta game, but it could be that might not be the best title. It allows you to do metagame progression. So that means that you can basically talk to your crew, and you can advance each of their little personal threads a little bit. And in turn, that gives you a lot of flexibility. These people are with you, and you can approach them at any time, and you can progress their storylines at whatever rate you feel comfortable with. Putting aside the storylines, there are also quests. Now, hubs are mostly known as places to get quests, side quests. That's not entirely the best way to think about it, though. A side quest is very important, but these side quests are not, please go kill 10 rabbits. These are not massively multiplayer online RPG side quests. These are side quests which help with your metagame progression, but more than that, these side quests link into the rest of the game world. These are excuses to go find cool stuff. So when you get a side quest from either a major crew member or an unnamed NPC, that puts a little flag somewhere in the universe, and that's always someplace that's interesting. There's something else going on in that general area, and therefore it's a real impetus to help you branch out and explore. A side quest where you have a person you know and hopefully respect taking you to some place cool and new, that is the best kind of side quest, and that is a powerful tool that you get out of the Normandy because the Normandy can travel the world with you. So in a normal hub world, you might have a hard time giving out really good side quests because you have a limited maximum travel range from your hub world. This gets rid of that problem. It's very, very well designed. And it goes without saying, the Normandy reuses assets. The Normandy has no real changes over the course of the game. A few of the interior rooms shift here and there are a couple of cutscenes where you might see it get taken apart. But it just has one core asset pack. They just created the Normandy asset pack, and then they were done, and they never needed to worry about creating the interior of your second ship or your third ship, all that stuff. And all of the other ships you board are made out of just modular level map components. So it's a very, very powerful tool for them to create a very dense and memorable base that stays with you for the whole game. All told, the Normandy is an excellent, excellent way to do this, but it's also a kind of expensive way to do it. The Normandy's interiors are very, very well designed. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it is an expensive thing to create. If one of us indies were to create a game, the Normandy might be the whole of our budget. That might be literally everything we do for 2 months, just flat out working on nothing else. And that's just unacceptable. So what can you do for a cheaper version of the Normandy? Well, surprisingly, it comes from another rather large game, Dragon Age. Now, Dragon Age has a lot of cities in it, but they're mostly RPG-style cities, not hub-world cities. So what is the hub in Dragon Age? Did you figure it out? I think you probably figured it out. The hub world in Dragon Age is the camp. The camp is always available to you wherever you go. It's full of the people you know, and it does all of these exact same things. It is literally exactly the same as the Normandy. The only difference is that the camp takes roughly 1% of the time and cost to create. So the camp is a way to do the exact same thing, but it doesn't have any rooms. It has very limited assets, and most of those assets are reused from the rest of the game. It's very, very cheap to create. Perfect. So if you are wondering, well, my hub world, is it going to be expensive? Oh, you could just make it a campsite. You don't have to go with the expensive option. You are an indie developer, and you need to cut costs. And I'm not saying that like, I'm on your back, cut costs. No, if you're an indie developer, you need to cut costs. You do not have a budget big enough to not cut costs. And the easiest way to do that is to have a hub world which does all of these things, and then you can save by not having to do them at 50 other places in your world map. Pretty nice. So let's talk a little bit more about the other things. I said that it made your game denser, and I said that it made your game easier to approach. And I also said that it made your game cheaper to develop, not just cheaper on assets. So what am I talking about there? Well, let's go ahead and look at Persona. Now, if you haven't played Persona, you may not understand the core concept, and I think that a lot of you probably haven't, so I'm just going to go over it real quick. Persona always takes place in a town or city, and it features a lot of school kids shooting themselves in the head. I mean, fighting monsters. So basically, at night, all of the school kids get together and use magic powers to go into some randomly generated labyrinth. But during the day, you're in this town. And depending on the Persona game, how the town is represented can change dramatically. In some Persona games, it is an overhead map with exact locations. In other Persona games, it is like a adventure map style wandering from screen to screen situation. But in all of these situations, the city is very, very well crafted. It's this gorgeous, gorgeous town full of life and interesting people and things to do and see. And it is obvious that they spent almost all of their asset budget on creating the town. Now, the town does change as you move through the day and into the night. The colors change and all that stuff. People will come in and come out. Areas may open up or close down. So it's not a static town. But that's the point. Once you've built this hub, you have something that's easy for you as a developer to grip. You as a developer can now look into this hub world and say, okay, well, I need to start a quest about, the farmer running out of food or whatever. And you can say, okay, well, I can do that in this hub world because this hub world is an easy to reach place for me. I know the player is going to be here. He can't be anywhere else. I know that the player will always have access to this town. All I need to do is make sure that the player knows that something might have changed. And so that is a much easier way to introduce partial quests or non-dominant quests, side quests, if you will. If you have the ability to create side quests in a normal RPG without a hub world, you'd be like, okay, well, the farmer ran out of food, but that's in village B, and the player is in either village A or village F, and I need to tell him that he can go back to village B for... You don't have to worry about that. The player location is known. He's in your hub world. Even if you have other cities, he'll be visiting your hub world. And that is the great power of a hub world to make your life easier. You do not have to worry about a whole bunch of moving pieces all across your world because all of your moving pieces are in one place, very easy for you to grapple with, understand. You'll be very familiar with the layout of the town in no time flat. You'll know exactly what needs to change when. And if you have a larger team, 2 or 3 people all working on quests, it's very easy to create a non-blocking situation by just logging all of the quests and where they go and who's doing them when. Hub worlds are great for that. So they make your game denser in the same way. Your game is denser because the player is always going to come here to the hub world, so all of your quests are going to be here in the hub world. You don't have to spread them out. You don't have to have every town have 2 people in it that say something interesting. Every single person in your town can say something interesting. Even the randomly generated passerbys can have something interesting to say because they are all linked into this same location, and they know all the quests that are going on because all the quests are happening right under their feet. You don't have to worry about them having secret information because they are all in the same place with access to the same things. Now, I also said that it makes your game easier to access. The players can figure out what's going on a lot easier. And that's very, very true. The way that this works is quite simple. The players have a hub world to explore, and they're going to explore it. They're probably going to explore it before they do anything else. They're going to very quickly have a mental map of all of the possible places that things might be happening or things that they want to keep a look on. And they will quickly start to prioritize and figure out what's going on. And all of that happens just because the map is very condensed. Because the map is a dense, easily approachable space, the players can quickly map it, and there's not going to be any ooh, I didn't know that was going to happen, or ooh, I don't know where this is. The players are always going to know where most everything is, and you're not going to have any problems with something like, okay, well, I need the player to go to town C, and therefore I need to put a link on their HUD. And no, don't do that. You don't need to. Your town is easily approached. And all you need to do is say that there's something going on in the library, and the player will be like, oh yeah, the library. I remember where that is. Now, this can go wrong, especially in menu-driven towns. Some of the Persona games are very menu-driven. They'll have like a big-ass map of the whole city, and then you will go to various locations. But the locations tend to open up and close down at random, and it tends to make you feel kind of lost. I'm much more fond of a city where there is no there is no mega map. where you're just stuck in some small area that you wander around in, and it's very nice and clean, and the player can easily understand everything that's going on. So Persona is an interesting case because the Persona games feature a lot of what you might call desolation advancement. As the game goes on, things get worse. And that means that as you watch, the city goes through a decline and things get worse and worse and worse, and the city reflects that. So that's kind of a tear down method. The downside of a tear down method is that you have to reveal a fully fledged city at the height of its glory to the player right up front. So you mean the player goes in there and the player's never seen your game before, they have no idea what's going on, and suddenly they're faced with 50 screens of city, every one of which is full of something interesting. They're going to feel a little bit lost. It's better than not having a hub world, but they're still going to feel pretty lost. The opposite example is to build up your city. Now, an example of this is there was a Naruto game on the PS3, which I think was called Ultimate Ninja Storm, but Naruto games tend to blur together to me, so I don't remember off the top of my head. The point is that there was a city in this game, and the city the city never gets any larger, but Naruto starts off the game as someone that is widely hated by everyone. And all the townsfolk don't like him. A lot of the stores are closed, and he can't really jump or anything like that. I mean, he can, but it's not really very high. So you just wander around, and the town feels very small. Feels very approachable, even though everyone feels like a total dick. You get the feeling that you're not missing anything. You don't feel swamped or lost or anything like that. But the city is quite large. You just can only access it from a certain angle, and a lot of things are closed. Well, the joy of this game is that as you progress, Naruto obviously learns more and more moves, and that includes things like double jumps and grinds and all sorts of stuff. So whereas originally the character would be like, oh, hey, I need to go over there, I guess I'll walk and walk and walk. Oh, is this a store? Are you open yet? Walk and walk and walk and walk. Later on, he'll go like, okay, I can double jump, so I can jump up here, and then I can jump over here, and then I can jump onto the secret space back here. And then I'll get like grinding. Okay, well, I'll jump up here, and then I'll jump up here, and then I'll grind up here, and then, oh, look, there's something up here. And as you go through the game, the city never gets any larger, but your ability to access it radically improves. And that's a combination of this multi-tiered navigation along with the city gradually becoming more friendly and shops opening up or having better stocks. And in general, you feel like you are beginning to be part of this town. It's a very nice feel. And it's actually pretty straightforward to design this kind of multi-tiered hub city. Now, the Naruto game does it with unlockable physical abilities. Naruto earns a double jump, and then he can access the roof layer of the city. Naruto learns how to grind, and then he can access the spire layer of the city. And so each of these layers has their own distinct feel. Now, the huge advantage of that is that the layers are very easy to cross between. Once Naruto gets the ability to double jump, he can double jump up and down all day. You can do something similar by creating a literally tiered city where you start off with access to the red zone, and then eventually you get access to the green zone. But the problem with that is that each of those will feel like a distinct city, like its own distinct hub world area. Whereas with this physical system, you really get the feeling that you're in the same city. You're just part of it. You're just more part of it than you were before. And I really do recommend this approach over a simple logic tiering system. Obviously, if your game does not have a physical component to it, then that's not going to be something you can do. But you can still build a tiered city where the tiers feel like they are simply more of the same city, going deeper into the same city. Whether that's by opening up streets that can see the first streets that you were on, or whether that's by having all of the citizens treat you so much nicer that now you can go in the buildings, or maybe it is something where you're now allowed to go out at dusk, and then you're allowed to go out at night, and the terrain stays the same, but different people and different opportunities arise. This is the sort of clever thinking you can do with a hub world, and it gives your players just this really, really great way to grow into your hub world. Now, all of that said, this kind of presumes a fairly complicated hub world, and as I mentioned before, that may not be something you can afford. You may have to just go with a campsite. But even then, you can still offer some level of progression within your campsite. For example, in Dragon Age, you steadily get more and more hangers-on. You start with the obnoxious DLC guy that tries to force you to buy things that don't make any sense. And then you steadily get like the dwarven people who can help you create weapons and runes, and then you get the soldiers that you can give resources to, and they'll fight for you and stuff like that. So as you go on, more and more resources crop up in this camping area, even though the camping area is always the same. And that's a very, very low budget way to do it. It works very well, and in this way you can have your player grow into a larger hub world, rather than the Persona way of starting with everything and then chipping away. I think that's probably enough talk about hub worlds. If I missed something, feel free to ask below, and I hope that this was concrete enough for you to understand some of the approaches you might want to take.